The first time she called me upstairs, I told myself it was just a favor, 10 minutes, maybe 15, to change a bulb. But the way her voice drifted down through the stairwell, soft, deliberate, too calm to be casual, I already knew it wouldn't feel like that. She was standing in the doorway when I reached the landing, framed by the dim glow from the hall lamp. Bare feet, loose cardigan, hair tied in a way that didn't look planned. Her eyes found me first, then dropped to the small toolbox in my hand. "You came fast," she said. "Yeah, well, lights shouldn't stay broken long." A half smile, spoken like a man who doesn't live alone. That line lingered. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded toward the ceiling light in her living room. "Which one's out?" She let me in. The air felt different in there, quieter, like it remembered things. The scent of old books and jasmine tea hung close to the walls. I could hear the faint hum of the fridge down the hall, the creak of the wooden floor beneath us. When I reached up to unscrew the bulb, she stood close, too close for it to be an accident. Her hand brushed mine when she passed the new bulb. Just a second of skin against skin, but it rewired something in the silence. "Careful," she said. "That one might still be hot. I'll manage." She didn't step back. I could feel her presence behind me, that quiet, steady breath near my neck. Every move felt heavier than it should. I replaced the bulb, clicked the switch, and light flooded the room. It was almost too bright. She blinked, looked away, then reached for the switch again. Click. Darkness. "I don't like it that bright," she said, voice lower now. "It's easier to think when it's dim." She wasn't wrong. In that half-light, her face looked softer, not younger, but more open, like the light had stopped fighting her. "Better?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "Better." I started packing my tools, trying not to notice how she'd sat down on the couch, how her knees were drawn together, one hand resting loosely on her leg. Her nails were unpainted. Her wedding ring was gone, though the faint line of it still showed. "You can leave the tools there," she said after a pause. "It's late. I'm not in a rush." That earned me another look, longer this time, curious. The kind of look that holds a question you're not supposed to answer. "You don't talk much, do you?" "Not when I don't know what to say." She smiled just barely. "That's rare." There was a quiet that came after that. Not awkward, just full. Like something alive had slipped into the room and neither of us wanted to scare it off. She broke it first. "Would you like some tea?" I should have said no, but she was already standing, already walking toward the kitchen. I followed. The sound of water boiling filled the space between us. She stood by the counter, one hand on the kettle, the other running absently along the edge of the sink. I leaned against the doorway, watching the faint rise of steam, the way her reflection blurred in the dark window. "Do you ever get tired of fixing things?" she asked quietly. "Only when they don't stay fixed." She turned then, met my eyes. Something unspoken passed, something that didn't belong to tools or light bulbs or neighborly kindness. And just as I stepped forward, just as her hand brushed the counter, waiting for something to happen, a sudden knock hit the door. She froze. The kettle whined, and in the thin strip of light between us, everything we weren't saying hung there, still burning. The knock on the door never came again. Whoever was must have left, but the air between us stayed interrupted, like a song cut off mid-note. She turned off the kettle and poured the water anyway, her movements slower now, more deliberate. The clink of porcelain against what filled the silence. "You don't have to stay," she said softly, not looking up. "I know, but I didn't move." She handed me a cup and leaned against the counter, folding her arms. The faint steam rose between us, smelling faintly of chamomile and something older, memory, maybe. "Your wife," I said before I could stop myself. "She passed, right?" Her eyes flicked toward me. "News travels fast downstairs. It's a small building." She nodded once, her jaw tightening. 2 years ago. I still catch myself setting out 2 cups sometimes. I didn't know what to do with that. The quiet confession, the way it hung in the air like dust that wouldn't settle. She looked down at her tea, tracing the rim with her finger. "He was older than me. Everyone said I'd grow bored, but I didn't. I grew quiet. There's a difference." Her words sank into me. I thought of my own silence, how I'd spent too long pretending I didn't mind being the listener, the helper, the one people called when something broke. When I didn't respond, she finally looked up. You live alone too? Yeah. Moved here for work. Haven't really met anyone. Her lips curved slightly. And yet you fix lights for strangers. I smiled. Guess I like reasons to knock. That made her laugh, but softly, the kind that fades as soon as it starts. For a moment, nothing else mattered. The world felt narrowed to the dim kitchen, the faint whistle of the cooling kettle, the brush of her sleeve when she moved past me to put something away. Her shoulder grazed my chest. Light, unintentional maybe, but stayed there in the air between us like heat off a wire. She hesitated, then said, People talk in buildings like this. I know. They'd have opinions. I don't care. That made her go still. Then, very quietly, You should. But her hand didn't move when it rested on the counter beside mine. It stayed close, a few centimeters away, her pinky just brushing my knuckle. I felt the smallest tremor in her fingers. I didn't pull away. She did, finally, just enough to break the contact, and took a step back, her eyes somewhere near the floor. You should go before I give them something to talk about. I nodded, but my feet didn't move right away. At the door, I turned back. She was standing where I'd left her, hair falling loose around her face, eyes caught between defiance and something softer. Thank you for the tea, I said. She didn't answer, just tilted her head slightly, like she was memorizing the moment. When I reached for the doorknob, she said quietly, The light in the hallway flickers sometimes. You might come check it tomorrow. Her tone was even, polite, but her fingers brushed the edge of the door as I opened it, barely grazing mine again. It wasn't an invitation. It wasn't a goodbye either. Just a pulse, small, deliberate, that said not yet. And that was enough to keep me thinking about her long after the door closed. The next evening, I told myself I was only checking the hallway light. It wasn't even flickering. Still, I knocked. She opened the door slower this time, as if she'd already guessed it would be me. Her hair was damp, her sweater slipping off one shoulder. I didn't think you'd actually come, she said. You mentioned the light. She smiled, that same half-smile that made everything sound like an inside joke. Come in, then. The apartment felt warmer tonight, faint music playing somewhere in the back. I caught the scent of her, clean soap, candle wax, something floral. She moved past me to pour herself a glass of wine, her bare feet quiet on the floorboards. Do you want some? I shook my head, and she shrugged, taking a sip. Your loss. She sat on the couch and motioned for me to sit across from her. I did, toolbox forgotten by my feet. For a while we just talked, little things, harmless things. The weather, the noise from the street, how she still couldn't bring herself to move her husband's coat from the closet. Each word chipped away at the space between us until silence felt closer than speech. Then her phone buzzed on the table. The name that flashed on the screen, Clara, building manager, made her flinch. She turned it face down. She likes to check in, she said quickly, almost too quickly. Checking in about what? A pause. People notice things. You, me. The late visits. I looked down. Let them. Easy for you to say, she murmured. You don't live in the shadow of people's sympathy. Her words carried more weight than I understood, but before I could ask, she leaned forward, elbows on knees, glass still in her hand, and looked at me in a way that made the room shrink. You shouldn't be here, she said, almost whispering. I know, and yet neither of us moved. The soft hum of the fridge filled the pause. Somewhere outside, rain started, the kind that taps windows lightly before it turns serious. When she set her glass down, her fingers brushed mine again, just like before. But this time, she didn't pull away. I felt her breath, warm and close. The space between us thinned until every sound, every inhale, felt shared. Do you ever think, she said, voice low, that some people just find each other at the wrong time? Yeah, I said, and they stay anyway. Her lips parted, barely, and for a second I thought she'd close the distance. She didn't. Instead, she blinked and turned her head, just as a sharp knock rattled the door. She jumped. I froze. Mrs. Lane, a voice called. You all right in there? It was Clara. We didn't breathe. She motioned for me to stay still. The door handle moved, then stopped. After a beat, the footsteps retreated down the hall. When it was quiet again, She exhaled, eyes closing. Her hand was still on my knee. "You see," she whispered. "It's not simple." "No," I said. "It's not." But neither of us moved away. Her pulse beat beneath her wrist. The rain outside thickened. We stayed there, too close, too aware, waiting for something to break, and neither of us ready to be the one who did. The rain didn't stop that night. It turned heavier, pressing against the windows like it wanted in. She didn't ask me to leave this time. She just turned off the lamp, letting the room fade into a low, amber glow from the kitchen light. Neither of us spoke for a while. We didn't have to. The air was thick enough with everything unsaid. She sat back on the couch, the thin fabric of her sweater clinging slightly to her shoulder. Her eyes tracked me as I set the untouched toolbox aside and sat down beside her. Not too close, but close enough to feel her warmth. "You shouldn't keep coming back," she said softly. "You know that." "I know." "Then why do you?" I hesitated. "Because you don't really want me to stop." She laughed once, quick, nervous, and looked away. But her hands fidgeted in her lap, betraying her calm. I watched her fingers twist, release, twist again. Finally, I reached out and stilled them with mine. The contact froze her. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered. "Maybe not," I said. "But you do." That broke something open. She turned to face me fully, her expression sharp with conflict, half anger, half something that burned behind her restraint. "You think this is simple?" she said. "You think you could just walk in here, touch me like that, and it won't?" She stopped. Her breath hitched. "It won't what?" I asked. Her voice dropped. "It won't make me remember I'm still alive." I didn't move. Neither did she. We just looked at each other, close enough to see the faint lines near her eyes, the damp strands of hair sticking to her cheek. Without thinking, I reached up and brushed one of those strands back. My hand lingered against her temple, tracing down to her jaw. Her skin was warm, too warm, and when she closed her eyes, I felt her lean into it just slightly. "Say something," she murmured. "I'm trying not to." Her eyes opened again, darker now. "What?" "Because if I do, I'll stop pretending I don't want to." A single beat passed. "Two." Then she exhaled, a sound caught between surrender and warning, and pressed her forehead lightly to mine. "You're just a boy," she whispered. "Then tell me to go." She didn't. The only sound was the rain, louder now, steady and relentless. My hand slid to the back of her neck, thumb tracing the edge of her hairline. Her lips were close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath when she spoke next. "If I let this happen," she said, "we don't come back from it." "I know." "Then why?" Her question cut off when a sharp chime split the air, her phone again, vibrating on the table. The name lit up. Evan, husband's friend. She froze. I felt her body tense under my hand. The distance between us hung by a thread. One move, one word, and it would snap. Her eyes flicked toward the phone, then back to me. "I can't," she whispered, but her hand stayed on my chest, unmoving. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky. We both turned our heads, breath catching, lips almost touching, waiting to see which storm would break first. The thunder had barely faded when she pulled back, standing too fast. Her glass tipped over on the table, wine spilling across old mail, and a framed photo face down. She didn't pick it up. "Evan," she said, almost to herself. "He shouldn't be calling." I tried to steady my voice. "Who is he?" She hesitated too long. Then, "My husband's best friend." The air changed. I rose slowly. "You still talk to him?" "Sometimes." Her eyes darted to the phone, still buzzing, then back to me. "He helps with things." The words didn't fit right. She wrapped her arms around herself, sweater slipping lower on one shoulder. "He thinks I need looking after." I took a step closer. "Does he come here?" Her silence said enough. "He doesn't know about." "There is no about," she snapped. "You and I, this." Her hand cut the air between us like she could erase it. "It's nothing." "Then why are you shaking?" That hit. She froze, staring at me as if she couldn't decide whether to run or reach for me. Her breathing was uneven now, visible in the rise and fall of her chest. The phone finally stopped vibrating, leaving the room too quiet. "He came by last week," she said finally, voice low. "Saw your name on the visitor list downstairs." Asked who you were. I felt heat crawl up my neck. What did you tell him? That you were helping with repairs. That's all. Her words were steady, but her hands trembled when she reached for a towel to blot the wine. I took it from her before she could. Our fingers collided, both of us gripping it, neither letting go. You lied for me, I said. She looked up, eyes wide. Don't make it sound noble. I did it because I didn't want to explain why you keep coming back. Maybe you already know why. Her breath caught. Don't, she whispered. But I couldn't stop. You wanted me here. You still do. She pressed the towel to the counter, not meeting my eyes. You're too young to understand what that costs. Try me. That made her look at me again. Really look, and something in her face cracked open. A flicker of panic, then longing. You think this is about you, she said quietly. But when I see you, I see everything I missed. Every choice I didn't make. Every time I stayed quiet when I should have wanted more. She stepped closer without realizing it. Close enough that the hem of her sweater brushed my arm, that I could smell the faint trace of wine on her breath. I shouldn't want this, she said. But you do. Her lips parted, half protest, half confession. Then, from the hallway outside, a voice. Mrs. Lane? Evan's here. She went still, eyes wide. I felt her hand clutch my sleeve, reflex desperate. Go, she whispered. Please. But she didn't let go. And for one suspended heartbeat, we both knew it. The truth that couldn't stay hidden anymore. That whatever we were pretending not to be, it had already begun. Evan's voice echoed faintly down the hallway. Too close, too real. She didn't move at first. She just stood there, hand gripping my sleeve, the pulse in her wrist fluttering like she'd been caught stealing something she wasn't ready to return. Go, she whispered again, but the sound barely reached her lips. I should have listened. Should have stepped away before this turned into something neither of us could explain. But I didn't. I reached up and brushed her hand from my arm, only to take it again, this time on purpose. Tell me to leave, I said quietly. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me. You don't understand, I do. My voice was lower now. You're afraid of what comes after. So am I. She exhaled, shaky, and when she looked at me again, the fight in her eyes had softened into something unguarded. Evan's been checking on me since the funeral, she said. He thinks I'm fragile. He doesn't see me anymore. Not really. But you look at me like I still exist. I stepped closer, slow, careful. The space between us shrank until I could feel the warmth from her body, smell the faint citrus on her skin. You do exist, I said. She blinked, eyes glistening. You'll regret this. Maybe, but not tonight. The hallway outside creaked. Evan's footsteps fading, then gone. The air inside felt heavy again, sealed off from the world. She stayed still, staring at me, as if every version of her life was unfolding right there, in the space of a breath. Her hand rose to my face, trembling, her thumb brushing the edge of my jaw. It wasn't practiced or certain, just human. I caught her wrist, held it there. Tell me this doesn't mean anything, I said. She didn't answer. The silence said enough. I leaned in, not all the way, just enough that the world tilted. Her breath met mine halfway, shallow and uneven. Her lips parted like a word she couldn't form. Then she stopped. If we do this, she murmured, we lose the version of ourselves that's still innocent. Maybe that's what we've been trying to do. Her laugh was short, almost broken. You're too young to speak like that. Then teach me how to stop. Something inside her gave way. She closed the last inch, her forehead resting against mine, the soft brush of contact enough to silence everything else. The rain, the fear, the world outside her door. Her fingers curled around the back of my neck. Mine traced the outline of her spine through the thin fabric of her sweater. For a long, impossible moment, we hovered there. Not a kiss, not yet, just that fragile space where wanting turns into decision. Finally, she whispered, "Don't make promises you can't keep." "I'm not promising," I said. "I am choosing." And this time, when she leaned in again, neither of us stopped. The kiss didn't feel like surrender. It felt like truth. And in that breathless, trembling stillness afterward, we both knew there was no going back. Morning came quietly, slow and golden through the blinds. The storm had passed, leaving the air washed clean, that soft silence that follows rain, where everything feels lighter but fragile too. She was sitting by the window when I woke, a cup of tea cooling beside her. The cardigan she'd worn last night hung loosely around her shoulders, and for a second, she looked almost like the woman from the first night I met her, graceful, careful, pretending not to be waiting for something. When she noticed I was awake, she smiled, small, hesitant. "You should have gone home," she said. "I didn't want to." Her eyes softened. "You'll ruin your reputation in this building." I laughed, still half asleep. "Guess I'll live dangerously." The joke landed gently. She turned back to the window, watching the sun streak across the wet pavement below. "Evan called again this morning," she said quietly. I didn't answer. "Do you want to?" She shook her head. "No, I think I was waiting for someone to remind me I could stop being looked after." I crossed the room and stopped behind her. The distance between us was no longer filled with hesitation, just warmth. I placed my hands on her shoulders, felt the steady rise and fall beneath my palms. "You don't need reminding," I said. "You already did that yourself." She reached up, covering my hand with hers. The gesture was simple but certain, not desperate this time, just real. "Last night felt like a mistake," she said. Then, after a pause, "But maybe mistakes are how we start over." I didn't answer. I just leaned down, brushed a stray strand of hair from her neck, and pressed a slow kiss to her temple. She exhaled softly, the sound small and steady, like a secret finding peace. "I used to think I was done feeling things this deep," she murmured. "That maybe age just makes you quieter. And now I think quiet doesn't mean empty." We stood there for a while, not speaking, just breathing the same air, listening to the city wake up outside. The world had resumed its rhythm, but ours felt different, slower, grounded. When she finally turned around, she reached for my hand, the same one that had once just brushed hers over a light bulb and too many unspoken words. This time, she held it fully, fingers threading through mine. "What happens next?" I asked. Her smile was soft, certain. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But for now," she tugged gently, pulling me down beside her on the couch. "We stay in the light. No promises. No pretending. Just the truth of being there, together, in that moment that no longer needed to be explained." Outside, the last drops of rain slid down the glass like punctuation marks on something finished, or maybe just beginning. She rested her head on my shoulder. And for the first time since that night, she'd call me upstairs. The silence between us didn't ache. It felt like belonging. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?